Hello and welcome to this first look exploring session, looking at the tragedy of Caesar and Pompey, or as I'm going to forever call it now, Caesar's Revenge. It's a play privately acted by the students of Trinity College in Oxford, sometime around 1605 ? That's where Wiggins puts it. It could exist anywhere pretty much between 1595 and 1606. But yeah, it's somewhere in that sort of turning of the 16th into the 17th century. It's not to be confused with another play called Caesar and Pompey. There's another play by George Chapman that will be coming to at some point with the same title. So from now on, I say I'll call it Caesar's Revenge because A, it's a better title, and B, it disambiguates it from the other play. We're doing this over 3 sessions. It's a relatively quiet session today. There's only 4 of us. We're going to be reading through it at a nice stop and starty kind of way. And reading today, the personification of discord, Caesar and Sempronius is
Bryony Sparrow, actor in Lincolnshire, ready for some Rewenge.
Reading Brutus, Lord, Cato Senior, and Cleopatra is...
I'm Eric. I am plotting Rewenge on everything.
Excellent, good plan. Just occurred to me that you're Cato Senior. Someone probably should be Cato Junior at some point. Oh, I'll figure that one out. Maybe that's next time. Reading Titinius, Dolabella, Cornelia, and Achillas is...
Hi, my name's Elizabeth Amisu and I'm based in the southeast of England, and I'm also ready for some revenge.
Yeah, I like a bit of revenge. And yeah, how that all works, we'll find out in a bit. I am your host, Robert Crighton. I'll be reading stage directions. I'll also be reading parts. I'll be Pompey and Antony as well. So we'll see how that goes. But without further ado, we're going to go into our prologue for Act 1. Sound the alarum. For then there are flames of fire. So health and safety hat on there. Enter discord.
Hark, how the Roman drums sound blood and death, and Mars high-mounted on his Thracian steed runs madding through Pharsalius' purple fields. The earth that's wont to be a tomb for men, it's now entombed with carcasses of men. The heaven appalled to see such hideous sights, for fear puts out her ever-burning lights. The gods amazed, as once in Titan's war, do doubt and fear which bodes this deadly jar. The stars do tremble and forsake their course, the bear doth hide her in forbidden sea. Fear makes boots swiffen her slow pace. Pale is Orion, Atlas gins to quake, and his unwildly burthen to forsake. Caesar's keen falchion through the adverse ranks, for his stern master hews a passage out, through troops and trunks and steel and standing blood, he whose proud trophies whilom Asia field, and conquered Pontus sing his lasting praise. Great Pompey, great while fortune did him raise, now veils the glory of his vaunting plumes, and to the ground casts off his high-hanged looks. You gentle heavens, O execute your wrath on vile mortality that hath scorned your powers, you night-born sisters to whose hairs are tied in adamantine chains both gods and men. Wind on your web of mischief and of plagues, and if, O stars, you have an influence that may confound this high-erected heap, down-power it. Vomit out your worst of ills. Let Rome, grown proud with her unconquered strength, perish, and conquered be with her own strength, and win all powers to disjoin and break, consume, confound, dissolve, and dissipate what laws, arms, and pride hath raised up.
And exit discord. So I'm getting very Marlovian vibes to this lot. I'm getting notes of Faustus, hints of Tamburlaine. Just the aroma of some Marlowe there. I'm just swilling it around my mouth and spitting it out. Mostly doing backstory as well. This great Pompey. who's on the run or was on the run, and it's power struggle between Pompey and Caesar and various people, which is reasonably complicated and won't necessarily go in too much detail now. Any thoughts from the room about Discord? I quite like "Hark how the Roman drums sound blood and death." It's a good opening gambit. That makes me listen, especially if there's flames. Discord on fire. Bryony.
Yeah, what a dramatic beginning to a play that surely has grabbed all of the audience with the combination of the obviously special effects, fire going on, but yeah, the language was so colourful and dramatic, and it just grabbed you straight off the bat.
Especially as again, what it's doing is mostly exposition. But it is also saying "shut up and listen" at the same time. So I like that. Other thoughts before we go into actual dramatic action of people talking to each other with words? No. Okay, let's go into Act 1, Scene 1. Enter Titinius.
The day is lost, our hope and honours lost. The glory of the Roman name is lost. The liberty and common weal is lost. The gods that whilom heard the Roman state, and Quirinus, whose strong puissant arm did shield the tops and turrets of proud Rome, do now conspire to wrack the gallant ship, even in the harbour of her wished greatness, and her gay streamers and fair wavering sails, with which the wanton wind was wont to play, to drown with billows of overwhelming woes.
Enter Brutus.
The foe prevails, Brutus, thou strivest in vain. Many a soul today is sent to hell, and many a gallant have I done to death in Pharsalius' bleeding earth. The world can tell how little Brutus praised this puff of breath. If loss of that my country's weal might gain, but heavens and the immortal gods decreed that Rome in highest of her fortunes pitch, in top of sovereignty and imperial sway, by her own height should work her own decay.
Enter Pompey. Where may I fly into some desert place, some uncouth, unfrequented, craggy rock, whereas my name and state was never heard? I fly the battle because here I see my friends lie bleeding in Pharsalius' earth, which do remember me what erst I was, who brought such troops of soldiers to the field, and of so many thousand had command. My flight a heavy memory doth renew, which tells me I was wont to stay and win. But now a soldier of my scattered train offered me service, and did call me Lord. Oh, then I thought, whom rising sun saw high, descending he beheld my misery. Fly to the hollow root of some steep rock, and in that flinty habitation hide thy woeful face from face and view of men. Yet that will tell me this, if naught beside. Pompey was never wont his head to hide. Fly where thou wilt, thou bearest about thee smart. Shame at thy heels, and grief lies at thy heart.
But see Titinius, where two warriors stand, casting their eyes down to the cheerless earth. Alas, too soon I know them for to be Pompey and Brutus, who like Ajax stand, when as forsook of fortune 'mongst his foes, grief stopped his breath, nor could he speak his woes.
Accursed Pompey, lo, thou art descried. But stay, they are thy friends that thou beholdst. Oh, rather had I now have met my foes, whose dagger points might straight have pierced my woes, than thus to have my friends behold my shame. Reproach is death to him that lived in fame.
Brutus, cast up thy discontented look, and see two princes, thy noble friends, who, though it grieves me that I thus them see, yet joy I to be seen they hung be.
And we have stage direction, he speaks unto then, so everyone's been talking to themselves or to the audience. Now actual dialogue ensues.
Let not the change of this successes fight, O noble lords, dismay these dauntless minds, which the fair virtue not blind chance doth rule. Caesar not us subdued hath, but Rome, and in that fight 'twas best be overthrown. Think that the conqueror hath won but small, whose victory is but his country's fall.
Oh, noble Brutus, can I live and see my soldiers dead, my friends lie slain in field, my hopes cast down, mine honours overthrown, my country subject to a tyrant's rule, my foe triumphing and myself forlorn? Oh, had I perished in that prosperous war, even in mine honour's height, that happy day when Mithridates' fall did raise my fame, then had I gone with honour to my grave. But Pompey was by envious heavens reserved, captive to follow Caesar's chariot wheels, riding in triumph to the Capitol. And Rome, have oft graced with trophies of my fame, shall now resound the blemish of my name.
Oh, what disgrace can taunt this worthiness, of which remain such living monuments engraven in the eyes and hearts of men? Although the oppression of distressed Rome and our own overthrow might well draw forth, distilling tears from fainting cowards' eyes, yet should no weak, effeminate passion seize upon that man, the greatness of whose mind and not his fortune make him termed the great.
Oh, I did never taste mine honours sweet, nor now can judge of this my sharpest sour. 58 years in fortune's sweet soft lap have I been lulled asleep with pleasant joys. Me hath she dandled in her folding arms, and fed my hopes with prosperous events. She crowned my cradle with success and honour, and shall disgrace await my hapless hers? Was I a youth with palm and laurel girt, and now an old man shall I wait my fall? Oh, when I think but of my honour, my triumphs past, the consulships and honours I have borne, the fame and fear wherein great Pompey lived, then doth my grieved soul inform me this, my fall augmented by my former bliss.
Why do we use of virtue's strength to vaunt, if every cross a noble mind can daunt? We talk of courage, then is courage known, when with mishap our state is overthrown. Never let him a soldier's title bear, which in the chiefest brunt doth shrink and fear. Thy former haps did men thy virtue shew, but now that fails them which thy virtue knew. Nor think this conquest shall be Pompey's fall, or that Pharsalia shall thine honour bury. Egypt shall be unpeopled for thine aid, and coal-black Libyans shall manure the ground in thy defence with bleeding hearts of men.
O second hope of sad oppressed Rome, in whom the ancient Brutus virtue shines, that purchased first the Roman liberty, let me embrace thee. Live, victorious youth, when death and angry fate shall call me hence to flee thy country from a tyrant's yoke. My harder fortune and more cruel stars envy to me so great a happiness. Do not prolong my life with vain, false hopes. To deep despair and sorrow I am vowed. Do not remove me from that settled thought with hope of friends or aid of Ptolemy. Egypt and Libya at choice I have, but only which of them I'll make my grave.
'Tis but discomfort which misgrieves thee this. Grief by despair seems greater than it is.
'Tis womanish to wail and moan our grief. By industry do wise men seek relief. If that our casting do fall out amiss, our cunning play must then correct the dice.
Well, if it needs must be, then let me go, flying for aid unto my foreign friends, and sue and bow where erst I did command. He that goeth seeketh of a tyrant aid, though free he went, a servant then is made. Take we our last farewell, then though with pain, here three do part, that ne'er shall meet again. Exit Pompey at one door, Titinius at another. Brutus remains on stage. I mean, it's interesting because it throws us straight into the action. You know, there's been a battle. They're running away. There's, you know, Pompey's coming on being a bit extra, which I kind of enjoyed. But then I was reading him, And it's interesting about how the dialogue does, or for that matter, doesn't flow. Some of it may be down to the punctuation, which for the viewers at home is not great in this particular version. A lot of work needs to be done on that. But I do find myself tripping a lot. I do find some of the flow of this dialogue isn't, and that's not inherently bad. That might be, once you get into it and figure it out, because it's, it may be connected to how the characters are functioning. But it's not like when we do some neoclassical plays that are a bit like this, where the verse is very regular and it's all very poetic. This is poetry, but it feels like there's some characters work going on here, as well as people just being a bit extra, which, is a genre. Bryony, then Elizabeth.
Yeah, the dramatic tone continues, and I love that. I just wanted to point out, we see an awful lot of glorifying of war, not just in early modern plays, it's still going on today, but this had a sense of how horrible some of the horrors of war actually seemed to come through with the language and the way it was described, which I thought was a refreshing change.
Though coming obviously from the loser, of course, as well, so he's probably lost more of his own side than if he was a winner. Though in those days, you pretty much lost a lot of people, regardless. Elizabeth.
Yeah, as just speaking to what Bryony was just saying about the sort of Dolce et Decorum-esque thing we've got going on, that it's I feel like it was hyper masculine, and I was like, okay, the masculinity in this is in your face right from the beginning. For goodness sakes, whoever we cast as Discord must be a female, even though there are some issues there with casting a woman as Discord. It's this concept of women representing Discord. There needs to be some balance, and there isn't any at the moment. It's just hyper masculine. It's all about war, and it's all very forthright. And then we had this line that just jumped out at me about the coal black Libyans shall manure the ground. I was like, okay, we're going to go there straight away. I've ticked it off of my early modern bingo. But I do think that the glorification of war in this is really presented quite beautifully. It is represented quite ornately. The language is ornate. And it does have a rhythm that kind of pulls you in and keeps you watching. Some of them, I think, some of the Seneca we've done is a bit of a lull. It kind of lulls you. I find that the Seneca lulls us. I think it might have been a Stukely translation we did. But for me, for this, I find that it's quite gripping.
Yes. So we're going to continue the scene. Act 1, Scene 2. Enter Caesar. Brutus is already on stage.
Follow your chase, and let your light-foot steeds, flying as swift as did that winged horse that with strong feathered pinions clove the air, o'ertake the coward flight of your base foe.
Do not withdraw thy mortal wandering blade, but sheathe it, Caesar, in my wounded heart. Let not that heart in thy country wound fear to lay Brutus bleeding on the ground, that thy fatal stroke of death shall more me glad than all thy proud and pompous victories. My funeral cypress than thy laurel crown. My mournful bier shall win more praise and fame than thy triumphing sun-bright chariot. Here in these fatal fields let Brutus die and bear so many Romans company.
'Twas not 'gainst thee this fatal blade was drawn, which can no more pierce Brutus' tender sides than mine own heart, or aught than heart more dear, for all the wrongs thou didst or strokes thou gavest. Caesar on thee will take no worse revenge than bid thee still command him and his state. True settled love can ne'er be turned to hate.
To what a pitch would this man's virtue soar did not ambition clog his mounting fame? Caesar, thy sword hath all bliss from me ta'en, and givest me life where best were to be slain. Oh, thou hast robbed me of my chiefest joy, and seekst to please me with a babyish toy.
And exit Brutus.
Caesar, Pharsalia doth thy conquest sound. Jove's welcome messenger, fair victory, hath crowned thy temples with victorious bay. And Io, joyful Io doth she sing, and through the world thy lasting praises ring. But yet, amidst thy grateful melody, I hear a hoarse and heavy doleful voice of my dear country crying, that today my glorious triumphs work her own decay, in which how many fatal strokes I gave, so many wounds her tender breast received. Here lieth one that's butchered by his sire, and here the son was his old father's death. Both slew unknowing, both unknown are slain. Oh, that ambition should such mischief work, or mean men die for great men's proud desire.
And exit Caesar. Act 1, Scene 3. Enter Antony, Dolabella, Lord, and others. From sad Thessalia, blushing all with blood, from death's pale triumphs, Pompey overthrown, Romans in foreign soils breathing their last, revenge, strange wars, and dreadful stratagems, we come to set the laurel on thy head, and fill thy ears with triumphs and with joys.
As when that Hector from the Grecian camp, with spoils of slaughtered Argians returned, the Trojan youths with crowns of conquering palm, the Phrygian virgins with fair flowery wreaths, welcomed the hope and pride of Ilium. So, for thy victory and conquering acts, we bring fair wreaths of honour and renown, which shall eternally thy head adorn.
Now hath thy sword made passage for thyself to wade in the blood of them that sought thy death. The ambitious rival of thine honours high, whose mightiness erst made him to be feared, now flies and is enforced to give thee place, whilst thou, the conquering Hercules, triumphing in thy spoils and victories.
When Phoebus left fair Thetis' watery couch, and peeping forth from out the golden gate of his bright palace saw our battle ranked, oft did he seek to turn his fiery steeds, oft hid his face and shunned such tragic sights. What stranger passest ever by this coast? Thee, this accursed soil disdained with blood, not crystal rivers are to quench thy thirst, for goring streams their rivers' clearness stains. Here are no hills wherewith to feed thine eyes, but heaped hills of mangled carcasses. Here are no birds to please thee with their notes, but ravenous vultures and night ravens hoarse.
What means great Caesar? Droops our general, or melts in womanish compassion, to see Thessalia's fields to change their hue, and silver streams to be turned to lakes of blood? Why, Caesar oft have sacrificed in France millions of souls to Pluto's grisly dames, and made the changed colour Rhine to blush, to bear his bloody burthen to the sea. And when as thou in maiden Albion's shore the Roman eagle bravely didst advance, no hand paid greater tribute unto death, no heart with more courageous noble fire and hope did burn with glorious great intent. And now shall passion base that noble mind, and weak events that courage overcome. Let Pompey proud and Pompey's complices die on our swords that did envy our lives. Let pale Tisiphone be cloyed with blood, and snaky furies quench their longing first, and Caesar live to glory in their end.
They say, when as the younger African beheld the mighty Carthage woeful fall, and saw her stately towers to smoke from far, he wept, and princely tears ran down his cheeks. Let pity then, and true compassion, move us to rue no traitorous Carthage fall, no barbarous perjured enemies decay, but Rome, our native country, hapless Rome, whose bows too ungently we have pierced, fair pride of Europe, mistress of the world, cradle of virtues, nurse of true renown, whom Jove hath placed in top of 7 hills, that thou the lower world's 7 climes mightst rule. Thee, the proud Parthian, and the coal-black Moor, the stern Tartarian, born to manage arms, doth fear and tremble at thy majesty, and yet I bred and fostered in thy lap durst strive to overthrow thy capital, and thy high turrets lay as low as hell.
O Rome, and have the powers of heaven decreed, when as thy fame did reach unto the sky, and the wide ocean was thy empire's bounds, and thou enriched with spoils of all the world, was waxen proud with peace and sovereign reign, that civil wars should loose what foreign won, and peace his joys be turned to luckless broils.
O Pompey, cursed cause of civil war, which of those hell-born stern Eumenides inflamed thy mind with such ambitious fire, as naught could quench it but thy country's blood.
But this no while thy valour doth disdain, which foundest unsought for cause of civil broils, and fatal fuel which this fire enflamed.
Then let then his death set period to this strife, which was begun by his ambitious life.
The flying Pompey to Larissa hastes, and by Thessalian temple shapes his course, where fair Penitus tumbles up his waves. Him will pursue as fast as he us flies, nor he, though guarded with Numidian horse, nor aided with the unresisted power, the Meroe or seven-mouthed Nile can yield. No, not all Afric armed in his defence shall serve to shroud him from my fatal sword.
And they exit Act 1, Scene 4. Enter Cato Senior.
Oh, where is banished liberty exiled to Afric deserts or to Scythia rocks, or whereas silver streaming Tanais is? Happy is India and Arabia blessed, and all the bordering regions upon Nile that never knew the name of liberty. But we that boast of brutes and collatins and glory we expelled proud Tarquin's name, do grieve to lose that we so long have held. Why reckon we our years by consuls' names, and so long ruled in freedom now to serve? They lie that say in heaven there is a power that for to rack the sins of guilty men holds in his hand a fierce three-forked dart. Why would he throw them down on Eta Mount, or wound or wound the underwinging ruddock, and not rain showers of his dead-doing darts, furor in shame and sulphurous smothering heat upon the wicked and accursed arms that cruel Romans against their country bear? Rome, where thy fall those prodigies foretold, when angry heavens did pour down showers of blood, and fatal comets in the heavens did blaze, and all the statues in the temple blast did weep the loss of Roman liberty. Then, if the gods have destined thy end, yet as a mother having lost her son, Cato shall wait upon thy tragic hearse, and never leave thy cold and bloodless course. I'll tune a sad and doleful funeral song, still crying on lost liberty's sweet name. Thy sacred ashes will I wash with tears, and thus lament my country's obsequies.
And exit Cato. Act 1, Scene 5. Enter Pompey and Cornelia.
O cruel Pompey, whither wilt thou fly, and leave thy poor Cornelia thus forlorn? Is it our bad fortune or thy cruel will that still it severs in extremity? Oh, let me go with thee and die with thee. Nothing shall thy Cornelia think that she endures for her sweet Pompey's sake.
'Tis for thy weal and safety of thy life, whose safety I prefer before the world, because I love thee more than all the world, that thou, sweet love, shouldst here remain behind till proof assureth Ptolemy's doubted faith.
Oh, dearest, what shall I my safety call? that which is thrust in danger's harmful mouth. Looks not the thing so bad with such a name? Call it my death, my base, my woe, my hell, that which endangers my sweet Pompey's life.
It is no danger, gentle love, at all. 'Tis but thy fear that doth it so miscall.
If it be no danger, let me go with thee, and of thy safety a partaker be. Alas, why wouldst thou leave me thus alone? Thinkest thou I cannot follow thee by land, that thus have followed thee over raging seas? Or do I vary in inconstant hopes? Oh, but think you my pleasure luckless is, and I have made thee more unfortunate? 'Tis I, have caused this overthrow. 'Tis my accursed stars that bode this ill, and those misfortunes to my princely love. Revenge thee, Pompey, on this wicked brat, and end my woes by ending of my life.
What means my love to aggravate my grief, and torture my enough tormented soul with greater reverence than Thessalian loss? Thy rented hair doth rent my heart in twain, and these fair seas which rain down showers of tears do melt my soul in liquid streams of sorrow. If that in Egypt any danger be, then let my death procure thy sweet lives safety.
Can I be safe and Pompey in distress? Or may Cornelia survive thy death? What danger ever happens to my soul? What danger each shall happen to my life? Nor Libyan's quicksands, nor the barking gulf, or gaping Scylla, shall this union part. But still I'll chain thee in my twining arms, and if I cannot live, I'll die with thee.
Oh, how thy love doth ease my grieved mind, which bears but then heavier than the heavens, under the which steel-shouldered Atlas groans. But now thy love doth hurt thyself and me, and thy too ardent, strong affection hinders my settled resolution. Then by this love and by these celestial eyes, more bright than are the lamps of Jove's high house, let me in this, I fear, my last request, not to endanger thy beloved mate, but in this ship remain, and here await how fortune dealeth with our doubtful state.
Not so persuaded as conjured, sweet love, by thy commanding meek petition. I cannot say I yield, yet am constrained, this never-meeting parting to permit. Then go, dear love, yet stay a little while. Somewhat I am sure, 'tis more I have to say. Nay, nothing now but heavens guide thy steps. Yet let me speak. Why should we part so soon? Why is my talk tedious? May be the last. Do women leave their husbands in such haste?
More faithful than that fair deflowered dame that sacrificed herself to chastity, and far more loving than that Charian queen that drank her husband's never-sundered heart. If that I die, get will it glad my soul, which then shall feed on these Elysian joys, that in the sacred temple of thy breast my living memory shall enshrined be. But if that envious fate shall call thee hence, and death with pale and meagre look usurp upon those roseate lips and coral cheeks, then air be turned to poison to infect me. Earth gape and swallow him that heavens hate. Consume me, fire, with thy devouring flames, or water drown. Who else would melt in tears? But live happy still in safety, live, whose safety only to my life can give. Exit Pompey.
Oh, he is gone. Go hide thee after him. My vow forbids, yet still my care is with thee. My cries shall wake the silver moon by night, and with my tears I will salute the morn. No day shall pass without my daily plaints, no hour without my prayers for thy return. My mind misgives me Pompey is betrayed. O Egypt, do not rob me of my love. Why beareth Ptolemy so stern a look? Oh, do not stain thy childish years with blood. Whilst Pompey flourished in his fortune's pride, Egypt and Ptolemy were fain to serve, and sue for grace to my distressed lord. But little boots it, to record he was. To be is only that which men respect. Go, poor Cornelia, wander by the shore, and see the waters' raging billows swell, and beat with fury gainst the craggy rocks. To that compare thy strong tempestuous grief, which fiercely rageth in thy feeble heart. Sorrow shuts up the passage of thy breath, and dries the tears that pity fain would shed. This only, therefore, this will I still cry. Let Pompey live, although Cornelia die.
Exit Cornelia. Act 1, Scene 6. Enter Caesar, Cleopatra, Dolabella, Lord Antony, and others.
Thy sad complaints, fair lady, cannot choose, but move a heart, though made of adamant, and draw to yield unto thy powerful plaint. I will replant thee in the Egyptian throne, and all thy wrongs shall Caesar's valour right. I'll put my crown from the usurper's head, and make the conquered Ptolemy to stoop, and fear by force to wrong a maiden queen.
Look as the earth at her great loves approach, when golden-tressed fair Hyperion's son, with those life-lending beams salutes his spouse, doth then cast off her mourning widow's weeds, and calleth her handmaid forth her flowery fair to clothe her in the beauty of spring, and of fair primroses to make sweet violets, to make gay, and of fair primroses and sweet violets to make gay garlands for to crown her head. So hath your presence, welcome and fair sight, that glads the world, comforts poor Egypt's queen, who begs for succor of that conquering hand, that as Jove's scepter this our world doth sway.
Who would refuse to aid so fair a queen?
Base be the mind that for so sweet a fare would not adventure more than Perseus did when as he freed the fair Andromeda.
Oh, how those lovely, tyrannizing eyes, the Grace's beauteous habitation, where sweet desire darts wandering shafts of love, consume my heart with inward burning heat. Not only Egypt, but all Africa will I subject to Cleopatra's name. Thy rule shall stretch from unknown Zanzibar unto those sands where high erected posts of great Alcides do uphold his name. The sunburnt Indians from the cast shall bring their precious store of pure refined gold. The labouring worm shall weave the Afric twist, and to exceed the pomp of Persian queen, the sea shall pay the tribute of his pearls, for to adorn thy golden yellow locks, which in their curled knots my thoughts do hold, thoughts captived to thy beauty's conquering power.
I marvel not at that which fables tell, how ravished Helen moved the angry Greeks to undertake 11 years' tedious siege to reobtain a beauty so divine. When I behold thy face, sweet composed face, O only worthy for whose matchless sake another siege and new wars should arise, Hector be dragged about the Grecian camp, and Troy again consumed with Grecian fire.
Great prince, what thanks can Cleopatra give? Not have poor virgins required such good. My simple self and service then vouchsafe, and let the heavens and he that all things sees with equal eyes such merits recompense. I do not seek ambitiously to rule, and in proud Africa to monarchize. I only crave that what my father gave, who in his last behest did dying will that I should jointly with my brother reign.
How sweet those words drop from those honey lips, which while she speaks they still each other kiss.
Reign, I, still reign in Caesar's conquered thoughts, there build thy palace, and thy sun-bright throne, there sway thy sceptre, and with it beat down those traitorous thoughts, if any dare arise, that will not yield to thy perfection. To chase thee flying Pompey have I cut, the great Ionian and Aegean seas, and dreadless past the toiling Hellespont, famous for amorous Leander's death, and now by gentle fortune so am blessed as to behold what mazed thoughts admire heaven's wonder, nature's and earth's ornament, and gaze upon these fiery sun-bright eyes, the heavenly spheres which love and beauty move. These cheeks where lilies and red roses strive for sovereignty, yet both do equal reign. The dangling tresses of thy curled hair nets weave to catch our frail and wandering thoughts. Thy beauty shining like proud Phoebus' face when Ganges glittereth with his radiant beams. He on his golden trapped palfreys rides, that from their nostrils do the morning blow, through heaven's great pathway paved with shining stars. Thou art the fixed pole of my soul's joy, 'bout which my restless thoughts are overturned, my Cynthia, whose glory never wanes, guiding the tide of mine affections, that with the change of thy imperious looks dost make my doubtful joys to ebb and flow.
Might all the deeds thy hands had e'er achieved that make thy far extolled name to sound, from sunburnt east unto the western isles, which great Neptune foldeth in his arms, it shall not be the least to sit a maid and enthronise her in her native right. What need you stand disputing on your right, or proving title to the Egyptian crown, born to be queen and empress of the world?
On thy perfection let me ever gaze, and eyes now learn to tread a lover's maze. Here you may surfeit with delicious store, the more you see, desire to look the more. Upon her face a garden of delight, exceeding far Adonis' feigned bower. Here stained white lilies spread their branches fair, here lips send forth sweet gilly-flowers smell, and damask rose in her fair cheeks do bud, while beds of violets still come between, with fresh variety to please the eye. Nor need these flowers the heat of Phoebus' beams, they cherished are by virtue of her eyes. Oh, that I might but enter in this bower, or once attain the cropping of the flower.
Now wend we, lords, to Alexandria, famous for those wide-wondered pyramids, whose towering tops do seem to threat the sky, and make it proud by presence of my love. Then Paphian temples and Cytherean hills, and sacred Cnida's bonnet veil to it, a fairer saint than Eurus there shall dwell.
Led with the lodestar of her looks I go, as crazed bark is tossed in troubled seas, uncertain to arrive in wished port. And Act 1 ends. This has shifted slightly more into a second look than a first look by the way. But in many ways, I'm quite liking... It has got a narrative thrust to it. I mean, it's continuing to have the sort of problems that we were bringing up earlier. You know, there's a lot of willy waving going on from the men. It's a very masculine culture, and there are lots of little and larger sort of problematic elements to do with race. I mean, Cleopatra, by the very nature of what the text decides she looks like, changes and creates all sorts of problems, because different texts and different accounts decide on what race and what she looks like, and also is objectified at the same time. It's one from many a dissertation. This and what this text is doing. It is doing a lot of things here. I'm not sure Alexandria was very well known for pyramids, but I think they might be more thinking of obelisks. Pyramids sometimes can mean obelisks, so that might be what they're thinking of there, or just didn't know about. It was. Anyway, I'm not sure about that one, but I could be wrong. Might be lots of pyramids in Alexandria. I don't know. Where they keep them? Where do they keep them? I don't know. Eric, someone talk. I'm just wittering now.
I was just going to say that I love how we have an entire scene of like, hey, we finally meet Cleopatra, and she's gorgeous, stunning, and so on. And that's the only reason and the only sort of thing we talk about. Nothing like, sort of, she doesn't even have to say, this is what I want. She kind of just, just sort of help me, maybe, and or call me, maybe, I don't know, and just sort of, I don't know. The guys are just drooling all over her in this scene, and she's like, "Yep, still got it," kind of almost. I think that would be the only way to play this without making it utterly creepy. I don't know.
I think there is a problem with the scene by what it's doing. I think they might be solved by how you play it. I think there is potential there to really play with it, but I'm not sure how much of that is in the text. I mean, I think because these are big political meetings, of course. It's about trapping their enemies and who are your allies. But yeah, it is all a lot of Antony just going, "Whoa," doing a lot of that. Which is in contrast to Pompey and Cornelia, of course. Obviously, they wouldn't be doing four because of, father-daughter thing. But, hey. No, not daughter, is it? A wife. Anyway, Bryony.
Yeah, so the only time women have been mentioned really in this play so far has either been to say, "My God, you're being such a woman, stop whining," or talking about their beauty. But I'm trying to put the misogyny to one side and think of the play. Actually, it was quite a tender moment between Cornelia and what's his face? I'm going to fight back at the misogyny by pretending to forget all of the male characters' names now. But I quite like that scene between the two of them. There was some tenderness there. It was nice to see a woman being mentioned and featuring in a different way to the two things I described.
Yeah, and we can hand wave it a bit by saying, this is what Roman society was a bit like, kinda. I mean, I'm not saying it's wholly hand wavy away. But it does have a thrust to it. I mean, considering that this is relatively small scenes, quite long speeches, a lot of poeticking, it does have a drive to it in a way that some other plays doing this don't. But there's more to come. There's a lot more plot to come. We're going to dive a little bit into Act 2 now. Eric.
I was just going to say, I like how we get both, all the camps thus far have been established. We've got, sort of Pompey, who was talking to Cornelia and convincing her to stay on the ship, I think. We have sort of Brutus, who disappeared and is probably going to reappear at some point. And then we had Cato Sr. going, "What have we come to?" Which felt a bit like sort of Cicero from... Lady Lumley's Jocasta, I think. I can't. No, not Jocasta. It was one of the Roman ones. Anyway, Cornelia, maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, we Cornelia and Pompey, etc. We've had this relationship explored in other plays, so it's interesting to have the overlap and the differences there. Actually, I'm sort of projecting a season already of just going, these plays tell a story, even if they're not telling exactly the same story, and they're doing it in slightly. I mean, also the different versions of Cleopatra as well that are out there as well, where you can play with what those texts are doing there. There are options. Okay, we're going to go on with what these students in Oxford are doing. We're going to run to midway through Act 2 for this session. So Act 2, prologue, we have the return of discord, flashes of fire.
Now, Antony, now Caesar hath thy flattering fortune heaped, those golden gifts and promised victories by fatal signs at Rubicon foretold. Then triumph in thy glorious greatest pride, and boast thou cast the lucky die so well. Now let the Triton that did sound alarm in his shrill trump resound the victory, that heaven and earth may echo of thy fame. Yet think in this thy fortune's jollity, though Caesar be as great may be, yet Pompey once was even as great as he, and how he rode clad in Sertorius spoils, and the Sicilian pirates overthrow, ruling like Neptune in the midland seas, who basely now by land and sea doth fly, the heavenly rector's prosecuting wrath. Yet sea nor land can shroud him from this jar. Oh, how it joys my discord-thirsting thoughts to see them wait that whilom flowed in bliss, to see like banners unlike quarrels have, and Roman weapons sheathed in Roman blood. For this I left the deep infernal shades, and passed the sad Avernus' ugly jaws, and in the world came I, being Discord hight. Discord, the daughter of the grisly night, to make the world a hell of plagues and woes. 'Twas I that did the fatal apple fling betwixt the three Idaean goddesses, that so much blood of Greeks and Trojans spilt. 'Twas I that caused the deadly Thebians' war, and made the brothers swell with endless hate. And now, O Rome, woe, woe to thee I cry, which to the world do bring all misery.
Woe, woe, and thrice woe, says Discord. I wasn't going to stop there. I was going to let that run through. But actually, I just wanted to briefly pause because we've looked at a play called Julius Caesar by William Alexander, which opens with Juno going on at great length about why she hates Julius Caesar, and tells a very similar element of this story here. So I'm wondering if that's an influence either way. It seems to, or whether that comes from other accounts that are trying to connect all mythology together, which some things do. Bryony, did you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I just thought it was worth noting after the conversation that we had earlier and what Elizabeth said about it being a female to balance it out. I don't know whether or not it's just a metaphor that he's using or similar or whatever, but there was something about being the daughter of something. I can't find it now. Sorry.
Yeah. So, yeah, daughter the Discord, the daughter of the Grizzly Knight. So, yeah, looks like we may be gendered that way. Eric?
I just like the concept that, like, you know, Discord probably hangs out in a bar with, like, you know, Tisiphone and Megara from the Furies, who appeared in, like, Tancred and Gismunda, and maybe Cupid. It's like a goth bar, definitely.
Yeah, do you see what I did with those humans the other day? I mean, it was so funny. Elizabeth?
Yeah, Eric was so right. I'm getting American Gods vibes, you know, from this. It was like this, they're really brought to life, actually. Discord is really well fleshed out, and everything that Discord says is very, like, powerful and very kind of gripping. And again, I think that's something to note in the plays, that we're now in Act 2 and it's still holding my attention quite well.
Okay, well, we're going to read a reasonable percentage of Act 2. Let's let it run. Act 2, Scene 1. Enter Achilles and Sempronius.
Here are we placed by Ptolemy's command to murder Pompey when he comes on shore. Then, brave Sempronius, prepare thyself to execute the charge thou hast in hand.
I am a Roman, and have often served under his colours when in former state Pompey hath been the general of the field. But 'cause I see that now the world is changed, and likewise feel some of King Ptolemy's gold, I'll kill him were he 20 generals, and send him packing to his longest home. I marvel of what metal was the Frenchman made, who when he should have stabbed Marius, they say he was astonished with his looks. Marius, had I been there, thou ne'er hadst lived to brag thee of thy 7 consulships.
Bravely resolved, noble Sempronius, the damnedest villain that e'er I heard speak. But great men still must have such instruments to bring about their purpose, which once done, the deed they love, but do the doer hate. Thou shalt no less, stout Roman, be renowned for being Pompey's deathsman than was he that fired the fair Egyptian goddess church.
Nay, that's all one. Report say what she list. 'Tis for no shadows I adventure for. Here are the crowns, here are the worldly goods. This between princes doth contention bring. Brothers, this sets at odds, turns love to hate. It makes the son to wish his father hanged, that he thereby might revel with his bags. And did I know that in my mother's womb there lurked a hidden vein of sacred gold, this hand, this sword should rape and rip it out.
Compassion would that greediness restrain.
Aye, that's my fault. I am too compassionate. Why, man, thou art a soldier and dost talk of womanish pity and compassion. Men's eyes must millstones drop when fools shed tears. But soft, here's Pompey, all about my work.
Trusting upon King Ptolemy's promised fane and hoping succour, I'm here to shore in Egypt, here a while to make abode.
Faith, longer, Pompey, than thou dost expect.
See now, world's monarchs, whom your state makes proud, but think your honours to be permanent, of fortune's change. See here a precedent, who whilom did command, now must entreat, and sue for that which to accept of late. unto the giver was thought fortunate.
I pray thee, Pompey, do not spend thy breath in reckoning up these rusty titles now, which thy ambition graced thee with before. I must confess thou wert my general, but that cannot avail to save thy life. Talk of thy fortune while thou list. There is thy fortune, Pompey, in my fist.
Oh, you that know what height of honour means, what 'tis for men that lulled in fortune's lap have climbed the highest top of sovereignty. From all that pomp to be cast headlong down, you may conceive what Pompey doth sustain. I was not wont to walk thus all alone, but to be met with troops of horse and men, with plays and pageants to be entertained, a courtly train in royal rich array, with spangled plumes that danced in the air, mounted on steeds, with brave caparisons decked, that in their gates did seem to scorn the earth, was wont my entertainment beautify. But now thy coming is in meaner sort, they by thy fortune will thy welcome rate.
What, dost thou for such entertainment look? Pompey, howe'er thy coming hither be, I have provided for thy going hence.
I will draw near, and with fair pleasing show, welcome great Pompey as the siren doth, the wandering shipman with her charming song.
Oh, how it grieves a noble haughty mind, framed up in honour's uncontrolled school, to serve and sue who erst did rule and sway. What shall I go and stoop to Ptolemy? Naught to be a noble mind more grief can bring than be a beggar where thou wert a king.
Welcome ashore, most great and gracious prince. Welcome to Egypt and to Ptolemy. The king, my master, is at hand, my lord, to gratulate your safe arrival here.
This is the king, and here is the gentleman, which must thy coming gratulate anon.
Thanks, worthy lord, unto your king and you. It joys me much that in extremity I found so sure a friend as Ptolemy.
Now is the date of thy proud life expired, to which my poignard must a full point put. Pompey, from Ptolemy I come to thee, from whom a present and a gift I bring. This is the gift, and this thy message is. Stab him.
And I assume that's the stage direction. O villain! Thou hast slain thy general, and with thy base hand gored my royal heart. Well, I have lived till to that height I came, that all the world did tremble at my name. My greatness then by fortune being envied, stabbed by a murderous villain's hand I died.
What? Is he dead? Then straight cut off his head. That whilom mounted with ambition's wings, Caesar no doubt with praise and noble thanks, regarding well this well-deserved deed, whom will present with this most pleasing gift.
Lo, you my masters, he that kills but one is straight a villain and a murderer called, but they that use to kill men by the great, and thousands slain through their ambition, they are brave champions and stout warriors called. 'Tis like that he that steals a rotten sheep that in a ditch would else have cast his hide, he for his labour hath the halters higher, but kings and mighty princes of the world by letters patent rob both sea and land. Do not then, Pompey, of thy murther plain, since thy ambition half the world hath slain.
And exit. Act 2, Scene 2, enter Cornelia.
Oh, traitorous villains, hold your murdering hands, or if that needs they must be washed in blood, imbrue them here in Cornelia's breast. Ay me, as I stood looking from the ship, a cursed ship that did not sink or drown, and so have saved me from so loath a sight. Thee to behold what did betide my lord, my Pompey dear, now nor Pompey now nor lord. I saw those villains that but now were here, butcher my love, and then with violence to draw his dear beloved body hence. What dost thou stand to play the oratrix, and tell a tale of thy dear husband's death? Doth thy love move thee no more? Go, cursed Cornelia, rent thy wretched hair, down blubbered cheeks in seas of saltest tears. And if it be true that sorrow's feeling power could turn poor Niobe into a weeping stone. Oh, let me weep alike, and like stone be. And you, poor lights, that saw this tragic sight, be blind and punished with eternal night. Unhappy long to speak, be near so bold, since that thou this so heavy tale hast told. These are but womanish exclamations, light sorrow makes from such lamentations. Pompey, no words my true grief can declare. This for thy love shall be my best welfare.
And she stabs herself. Act 2, Scene 3. Enter Caesar, Cleopatra, Antony, Dolabella, and a lord.
There stern Achillas and Fortunius lie, traitorous Sempronius and proud Ptolemy. Go plead your cause for the angry Radamant, and tell him why you basely Pompey slew, and let your guilty blood appease his ghost that now sits wandering by the Stygian banks. Unworthy sacrifice to quite his worth, for Pompey, though thou wert mine enemy, and vain ambition moved us to this strife, yet now in death, when strife and envy cease, thy princely virtues and thy noble mind move me to rue thy undeserved death, but found a greater danger than it fled. Unhappy man, to scape so many wars, and to protract thy glorious day so long, here for to perish in a barbarous soil, and end life's date, stabbed by a bastard's hand? But yet with honour shalt thou be entombed. I will embalm thy body with my tears, and put thy ashes in an urn of gold, and build with marble a deserved grave, whose worth indeed a temple ought to have.
See how compassion draws forth princely tears, and virtue weeps her enemy's funeral. So sorrowed the mighty Alexander when Bessus' hand caused Darius to die.
These grieved sorrowing princes do with me jointly agree in contrariety. Alack, we mourn, grieved is our mind alike, our gait is discontented, our heavy our looks, our sorrows all alike, but dislike cause. Their foe is their grief's causer, which, my friend, it is the loss of one that makes them wail, but I that one there is a cruel one, do wail and grieve and unregarded moan. Fair beams cast forth from these dismayful eyes, chain my poor heart in love and sorrow's guise.
Forget, sweet prince, these sad, perplexed thoughts. Withdraw thy mind in cloudy discontent, and with Egyptian pleasures feed thine eyes. Wilt thou behold the sepulchres of kings and monuments that speak the workman's praise? I'll bring thee to great Alexander's tomb, where he, whom all the world could not suffice, in bare 6 foot of earth entombed lies, and shew thee all the cost and curious art, which either Cleops or our Memphis boast. Would you command a banquet in the court, I'll bring you to a royal golden bower, fairer than that wherein great Jove doth sit, and heaves up bowls of nectar to his queen, a stately palace, whose fair double gates are wrought with garnished carved ivory, and stately pillars of pure bullion framed, with orient pearls and ancient stones embossed, with golden roofs that glister like the sun, shall be prepared to entertain my love. Or wilt thou see our academic schools, or hear our priests to reason of the stars? Hence Plato fetched his deep philosophy, and here in heavenly knowledge they excel.
More than most fair, another heaven to me, the stars whereon I gaze shall be thy face, thy moral deeds, my sweet philosophy, Venus the muse, whose aid I must implore. Oh, let me profit in this study best, for beauty's scholar I am now professed.
See how this fair Egyptian sorceress enchants these noble warriors' manlike minds, and melts their hearts in love and wantonness.
Most glorious queen, whose cheerful smiling words expel these clouds that overcast my mind, Caesar will joy in Cleopatra's joy, and think his fame no whit disparaged, to change his arms and deadly sounding drums for love's sweet lays and Lydian harmony. And now hang up these idle instruments, My warlike spear and uncontrolled crest, my mortal wounding sword and silver shield, and under thy sweet banners bear the brunt of peaceful wars and amorous alarums. Why, Mars himself his bloody rage allayed, dallying in Venus' bed, hath often played, and great Alcides, when he did return from Juno's tasks and Nemean victories, from monsters fell and Nomean toils, reposed himself in Dianara's arms. Here will I pitch the pillars of my fame, here the non ultra of my labours right, and with these cheeks of roses, locks of gold, end my life's date and travails manifold.
How many lets do hinder virtuous minds from the pursuit of honour's due reward? Besides Charybdis and fell Scylla spite, more dangerous Circe and Calypso's cup, than pleasant gardens of Alcyonus, and thousand lets voluptuousness doth offer.
I will regard no more these murderous spoils and bloody triumphs that I liked of late, but in love's pleasures spend my wanton days. I'll make thee garlands of sweet-smelling flowers, and with fair rosal chaplets crown thy head. The purple hyacinth of Phoebus' land, fresh amaranthus that doth never die, and fair Narcissus' dear resplendent shores, and violets of daffodils so sweet, shall beautify the temples of my love, whilst I will still gaze on thy beauteous eyes, and with ambrosian kisses bathe thy cheeks.
Come now, fair prince, and feast thee in our courts, where liberal cares and lies fat shall power their plenty forth, and fruitful store. The sparkling liquor shall overflow his banks, and Meroe learned bring forth pleasant wine. Fruitful Arabia and the furthest Ind shall spend their treasuries of spicery. With Nardus cornets will gird our heads, and all the while melodious warbling notes shall, passing the sevenfold harmony of heaven, shall seem to ravish our enchanted thoughts. Thus is the fear of unkind Ptolemy changed by thee to feast in jollity.
Oh, how mine ears suck up her heavenly words, the whilst mine eyes do prey upon her face.
Wend we then, Antony, with this royal queen, this day we'll spend in mirth and banqueting.
Had I, Queen, Juno's herdsman's 100 eyes to gaze upon these two bright sons of hers, yet would they all be blinded instantly.
What, hath some melancholy discontent o'ercome thy mind with troubled passions?
Yet being blinded with the sunny beams, her beauty's pleasing colours would restore Discaed's sight with fresh variety.
Lord Antony, what means this troubled mind? Caesar invites thee to the royal feast that fair Queen Cleopatra hath prepared.
Pardon me, worthy Caesar, and you lords, in not attending your most gracious speech. Thoughts of my country and return to Rome somewhat distempered my busy head.
Let no such thoughts distemper now thy mind. This day to Bacchus we will consecrate, and in deep goblets of the purest wine drink healths unto our several friends at home.
If it of my country or of Rome I thought, 'twas that I never meant for to come there, but spend my life in this sweet paradise. And they exit. We're going to go on to Act 2, Scene 4, which means I'm going to have to pass out some parts. So, Bryony, could you be Cicero? Eric, could you read you're Brutus. Elizabeth, could you read Casca? And I'll read everyone else. Enter Cicero, Brutus, Casca, Camber, of the adverse party, I presume, and Trebonius.
Most prudent heads that with your counsels wise the pillars of the mighty Rome sustain, you see how civil broils have torn our state, and private strife hath wrought a public woe. Thessalia boasts that she hath seen our fall, and Rome that whilom wont to tyrannize, and in the necks of all the world hath ranged, loosing her rule, to serve is now constrained. Pompey in the hope and Pompey the hope and stay of common weal, whose virtues promised Rome security, now flies distressed, disconsolate, forlorn, reproach of fortune and the victor's scorn.
What now is left for wretched Rome to hope, but in lament and bitter future woe, to weigh the downfall of her former pride? Again Porsena brings in Tarquin's names, and Rome again doth smoke with furious flames. In Pompey's fall we are all overthrown. We all are overthrown, and subject made to conqueror tyranny.
Most noble Cicero and you Roman peers, pardon the author of unhappy news, and then prepare to hear my tragic tale. With that same look, that great Atreides stood at cruel altar stained with daughter's blood. When Pompey fled, pursuing Caesar's sword, and thought to shun his following destiny, and then began to think on many a friend, and many a one recalled he to mind, who in his fortune's pride did leave their lives, and vowed service at his princely feet. From out the rest, the young Egyptian king, whose father of an exiled banished man he seated had in throne of majesty, him chose to whom he did commit his life. But oh, who doth remember good turns past? The rising sun, not setting, doth men please. To ill committed was so great a trust, unto so base a fortune favoring mind, for he the conqueror's favor to obtain, by treason caused great Pompey to be slain.
Oh, damned deed!
Oh, traitorous Ptolemy! Oh, most unworthy and ungrateful fact! What plagues may serve to expiate this act? The rolling stone or ever-turning wheel, the quenchless flames of fiery Phlegethon, or endless thirst of which the poets talk, are all too gentle for so vile a deed.
Well, did the Sibyl's unrespected verse bid thee beware of crocodilish Nile?
And art thou in a barbarous soil betrayed, defrauded Pompey of thy funeral rites? Then none could weep upon thy funeral hearse, none could thy consulships and triumphs tell, and in thy death set forth thy living praise. None would erect in thee a sepulchre, or put thine ashes in a precious urn.
Peace, lords, lament not noble Pompey's death, nor think him wretched, 'cause he wants a tomb. Heaven covers him whom earth denies a grave. Think you a heap of stones could him enclose, who in the ocean's circuit buried is? And every place where Roman names are heard, the world is his grave, where living fame doth blaze, his funeral praise through his immortal trump, and o'er his tomb virtue and honour sits, with rented hair and eyes bespent with tears, and wail and weep their dear son Pompey's death.
But now, my lords, for to augment this grief, Caesar, the Senate's deadly enemy, aims eke to us, and means to triumph here upon poor conquered Rome and Commonwealth.
This was the end at which you always aimed.
Then end all hopes of Romans' liberty. Rise, noble Roman, rise from rotten tombs, and with your swords recover that again. With your base, brave prowess won, our baseness lost.
Renowned lords, content your troubled minds. Do not add fuel to the conqueror's fire, which once inflamed will burn both Rome and us. Caesar, although of high aspiring thoughts and uncontrolled ambitious majesty, yet is of nature fair and courteous. You see, he cometh conqueror of the East, clad in the spoils of the Thessalian fields. Then we, unable to resist such power, by gentle peace and meek submission, must seek to pacify the victor's wrath.
And they exit Act 2, Scene 5. Enter Cato Senior, who we've already seen, and Cato Junior, who will be Elizabeth.
Yay!
My son, thou seest how all are overthrown that sought their country's freedom to maintain. Egypt forsakes us. Pompey found his grave, where he most succor did expect to have. Scipio is overthrown, and with his hapless fall, Afric to us doth former aid deny. Oh, who will help men in adversity? Yet let us shew in our declining state that strength of mind, that virtue's constancy, that erst we did in our felicity, though fortune fails us, though fortune fails us, let's not fail ourselves. Remember, boy, thou art a Roman born, and Cato's son of me do virtue learn. Fortune of others above all things see. Thou prize thy country's love and liberty. All blessings fathers to their sons can wish. Heaven's power on thee. And now, my son, withdraw thyself a while and leave me to my book.
What means my father by this solemn leave? First he remembered me of my fortune's change, and then more earnestly did me exhort to country's love and constancy of mind. Then he was wont. Somewhat's the cause, but what I know not. Oh, I fear, his too courageous heart that cannot bear the thrall of Rome and triumph of his foe. By his own hand threats danger to his life. Howe'er it be at hand, I will abide, waiting the end of this that shall betide.
Exit Cato Jr., Cato Senior with a book in his hand.
Plato, that promised immortality, doth make my soul resolve itself to mount unto the bower of those celestial joys, where, freed from loathed prison of my soul, in heavenly notes to Phoebus which shall sing, and paean eo, paean loudly ring. Then fail not hand to execute this deed, nor faint not heart, for to command my hand. Waver not mind to counsel this resolve, but with a courage and thy life's last act. Now do I give thee, Rome, my last farewell, who cause thou fearest ill do therefore die. Oh, talk not now of Canna's overthrow, and raise out of thy lasting calendars those bloody songs of Hilia's dismal sight, and note with black that black and cursed day when Caesar conquered in Pharsalia. Yet will I not his conquest glorify. My overthrow shall ne'er his triumph grace, for by my death to the world I'll make that known. No hand could conquer Cato but his own.
And Cato stabs himself. Enter Cato Jr., running to him.
Oh, this it was my mind told me before. What means my father? Why with naked blade dost thou assault that faithful princely hand, and makest the base earth to drink thy noble blood? Be not more stern and cruel gainst thyself than thy most hateful enemies would be. No Parthian, Gaul, Moor, no, not Caesar's self, would with such cruelty thy worth repay. O stay thy hand, give me thy fatal blade, which turns his edge and waxeth blunt to wound a breast so fraught with virtue excellent.
Why dost thou let me of my firm resolve, unkind boy, hinderer of thy father's joy? Why dost thou slay me, or wilt thou betray thy father's life unto his foeman's hands? And yet I wrong thy faith and love too much, and thy soul's kindness thou art unkind.
If for yourself you do this life reject, let you your sons and country's sake respect. Rob not my young years of so sweet a stay, nor take from Rome the pillar of her strength.
Although I die, yet I do leave behind my virtue's favourite to be thy youth's guide. But for my country could my life it profit, I'll not refuse to live that died for it. Now doth but one small snuff of breath remain, and that to keep should I mine honour stain.
Where you do strive to shew your virtue most, there more you do disgrace it. Cowards use to shun the woes and troubles of this life, basely to fly to death's safe sanctuary, when constant virtues doth the hottest brunts of grief's assaults unto the end endure.
Thy words prevail. Come, lift me up, my son, and call some help to bind my bleeding wounds.
Father, I go with a more willing mind than did Aeneas when from Trojan fire he bare his father, and did so restore the greatest gift he had received before.
Exit Cato Jr.
Now have I freed me of that hurtful love, which interrupted my resolved will, which all the world can never stay nor change. Caesar, whose rule commands both sea and land, is not of power to hinder this weak hand. And time succeeding shall behold that I, although not live, yet died courageously.
Stabs himself. Enter Cato Jr.
Oh, hast thou thus to thine own harm deceived me? Well, I perceive thy noble, dauntless heart, because it would not bear the conqueror's insolence, used on itself this cruel violence. I know not whether I should more lament that by thine own hand thou thus slaughtered art, or joy that thou so nobly didst depart.
And exit. End of Act 2. Yeah, so Cato Senior saying, yeah, oh, get me some bandages, will you? Yeah, it's fine. Stab. Yeah, there's it's all very extra, isn't it? And it's interesting how many people are really not talking to each other in scenes, because this script we've got isn't marked with asides. But, Anthony seems to spend most of his time just talking to the audience going, she's lovely. She's so beautiful. Sorry, what was that? Yeah, Ptolemy. Yeah, bad. And of course, we have this massive scene with, Pompey being murdered. And of course, Cornelia is watching it, and then makes away with herself as well. So, we get the sort of comedy villains, not quite comedy villains, but they're in that sort of borderline area. And then everyone's sort of discussing, how it was done and all the rest of it. Again, there's a great sort of narrative thrust to it. It's there's a story and it's moving forward, but while also discussing things, there's still very blokey, still lots of issues with some of that. But yeah, it's surprisingly, it's got a bit of oomph to it. Bryony.
Yeah, just earlier on, there was a bit where I read a stage direction of stabs him, and I did think at the time, and now even more so because it's just got so much more, as you say, extra. It was, I kind of felt like it could have been part of the script, like one of those people that refers to themselves in the third person. Just like, I know obviously for dramatic effect you would not say the line, but actually he might be the sort of person that would.
Yeah, because he says, this is the gift and this my message is. It's almost like he should hold up a bit of paper. This my message is, stab him, kind of thing. Yeah, it's weird the way it veers between those different veins, and then we're introduced to some people who aren't very happy. Cicero's not very happy, but he's sort of telling everyone to calm down a bit. You don't want to add fuel to the fire because bad things might happen. And of course, everyone listens to Cicero. That all goes very, very well. Eric.
I just enjoyed how Brutus's function in the scene is just to bring bad news. It's like, dude, come on, just like don't open your mouth again, or something. I don't know. Just I feel like someone should have dropped him a hint.
Yeah, well, you had to say the things. Elizabeth.
This has become a very stabby play. Since the death of Pompey, it's become very stabby and very suicide-y. And I think it's quite good. I think it really adds to that kind of gripping nature of the text. The way even reading the text, you don't have those linguistic rules that enable you to kind of almost just sort of read a few lines ahead and be and know exactly what you're going to say, or know that this line is going to rhyme with the next one. There's nothing like that in this dialogue. You have to really be on your A game.
Yeah, it is slightly tricky. I mean, it's not much fun for first read, and there are some textual problems, which isn't making our lives easier. But yeah, it does keep surprising, and talking about it's quite a stabby play. Spoiler alert: Act 3's quite stabby. Very lot of stabbing might occur in Act 3.
Caesar's okay though,
yeah.
Right? Caesar's okay though, right?
Yeah, Caesar's fine. Caesar's fine. He'll be cool. He'll be cool. Eric.
I'm just intrigued by how Cleopatra has gone from this. I mean, okay, again, depending on how you play it, it's just like sort of, everyone's kind of drooling over her whenever she opens her mouth, and it's like, oh my God, she's so awesome. She's so gorgeous. We gotta get over her. And she's just like describing, and here we have the city, and here we have the library. If you really want to go there. But hey, sexy time. It just feels very sort of, her function in the scene is kind of like to get them to Egypt and sort of make them forget that they were sad, kind of.
Yeah, Cleopatra isn't really engaging in her dialogue, isn't really engaging with the politics of what's going on, which is reasonably complicated. The Egypt has basically agreed to betray Pompey at this point, and Cleopatra just isn't really actually engaged in any of that, and there is a real problem. Cleopatra is there as object rather than as person a lot of the time, though her speeches individually are quite nice, in the context of what's going on in the scene, it's quite divorced from the action. That's how it seemed to me. It doesn't feel that there's actually any real response to anything else anyone is saying, which is disappointing when you've got Cleopatra in the scene. It would be nice if actually, someone who is politically quite clever and a survivor, for that to be engaged with more would be nice. But never mind. Okay, we're into final thoughts from the room. Slightly more truncated session than expected. Eric, do you have any final thoughts about the first two acts of this play?
You can kind of tell that it was written by students, although there are moments of like sort of, well, we've discussed all the weird moments, but I mean, there are moments where you just go along with the description, and it's like sort of just like, Cleopatra describing sort of the beauty of Alexandria and all that stuff, or Memphis or wherever she was describing. And then you've got stuff like sort of, just the elaborate plot of Cato sort of trying to kill himself before his son finds out and stuff. There's a lot of stuff going on in this play, and I'm intrigued. I wonder what will happen to the characters.
It is packing in a fair amount of history in quite a fleet of foot manner, actually. And, if there is a bit of a préciness to some of the characters, Cornelia, Pompey to a degree, that we're not necessarily digging very deep, but there's enough going on there. They're not caricatures. And yeah, the studentiness of it all is not as pronounced as I was expecting. I was expecting something a little more clumsy than this. Certainly more... die, hideous creature, die kind of dialogue that we've had in previous plays. Bryony, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think there's some really nice detail in this, like the actual word sentence by sentence. There's some really lovely stuff there, but I think maybe the issues with this are a bit more big picture-y in terms of the female characters being as well written as characters in modern day porn, for example. It could be better in places, but if you zoom into it, there's some nice moments there. And overall, I mean, like I say, I'm having to really, really stamp down hard to ignore the misogyny, because it is a huge problem to me. But aside from that, I'm not finding it not enjoyable. I just am having to constantly keep forcing that back down a bit.
Yeah, I think in performance, there are some structural adjustments that could be made to a lot of that. I don't think we could ever disguise the nature of Roman society too much, and it might be actually you lean into it to just go, this is a very masculine world. Women do not, by and large, have much direct power in the way things work here. So there might be something that might be brought out of that, but maybe not. Elizabeth, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I think that the play is not without its problems, but for something written by students, I think it's remarkably well written. Like there's several metaphors metaphors. I'm a big fan of metaphors. But there's several metaphors in this that are just stunning. There's one that Caesar says about the garlands of sweet-smelling flowers, like the rosal chaplets, the purple hyacinth and everything. But I think what we have here is something to do with hyperbole that almost undermines it, that almost undermines the standard of the writing, especially like in that scene with Cato Senior and Cato Junior, where Cato Junior keeps running off stage. I thought that could be funny. We have to be very careful there, because this is Cato Senior's scene for him to be doing his death scene, So I thought that it's very, very on the cusp of greatness. And I think that Bryony's comment about misogyny is well taken. I think the place of women in this is something that needs to be challenged, and it could be challenged by casting the male characters as women, or having maybe trans actors play the women in as well. I think that the way you cast this will completely turn that on its head, and kind of make us look at the misogyny in a new light. And I think that belongs to the trope of men playing women in early modern drama anyway. So there was it's a problematic action anyway, the place of women and men on stage in drama. So I think there's lots of things to play with here. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so we will hopefully return to this very, very shortly. Sans me, but the play will be continued. All that remains is thank all the wonderful readers for all their wonderful reading. Thank you very much, everyone, and goodbye. Woe to thee, I cry.